Welcome back to Road Gang Radio. Join Jimmy Mack and Lindsay Lawler's Gang of the Airwaves by subscribing to Radio Nemo on YouTube.
We celebrate all kinds.
Make it official. After all, if you're listening, you're already in the gang. The Road Gang.
Hey, by the way, I am totally with the Paranormal Pie Man, who wants to have a day called after him, Pie Man Day. We probably could fold it into National Pie Day. That's a big thing, by the way. Ask our good friend Jody Vale about McMinimans. Who is that a good pie out of Michigan? You guys got to get your hands on that. Paranormal Pie Man says something that I really can't help myself and agree with. Apple is the fall flavor, not pumpkin. Pumpkin is the Thanksgiving flavor. Pumpkin is the middle of November flavor. But right now, everything's apple. Everything's coming up apple. If it's not coming up Millhouse, it's coming up apple here on Road Gang Radio. Phone Master, do I have another phone call I got to get to here real quick?
Oh, you got a Marshall.
Marshall, you got about a minute or two before I bring in Kevin Lindsey and the club from Castrol. What's going on, brother?
Oh, I just want to know, did you get the pictures I sent you of the magnesium stuff there for your dad?
I did.
Sent that.
I
Okay.
did. And really
Hope
cool, we're going grocery shopping today, and we're going to spend time helping him navigate online. So we're going to look for options of where we can get it. Really appreciate it. It's his grocery day, which is really well timed.
I have a movie question also for
Ask,
you.
please.
And it is a very obscure movie filmed in my old hometown at my old favorite truck stop. It's a terrible movie. But one of the main actors in it is Sonny Liston. Just wondering whether Dre knew who Sonny Liston was. I bet you do.
Oh, my God, of course I do.
And
I'm coming.
He was a professional boxer, champion, and lost his title to an unknown guy by the name of Cassius Clay, who changed his name to Muhammad Ali. And not many people know. But Sonny Liston, I think he was only in one or two movies. He's a terrible actor. And but the movie is Moonfire.
Oh, it's terrible.
You watch it free on YouTube.
Oh, it's terrible. It's so bad. It's actually so bad it's good. It really is so bad it's good. It is so it's so he plays a truck driver, and if I remember correctly, he's taking on Nazis, right?
They call him the farmer in the movie. It was the farmer. And it's a terrible movie. But everywhere it was filmed was in Tucson, Arizona there, and I knew every one of the deals where it was filmed at. The owner of the Triple T truck stop, who's long since passed away, actually played some cameo roles in it. And the thing I always liked about it, it's very old school at the truck stop because it is old. And they're like paging drivers, paging Marshall Platter line 2, Marshall Platter pickup line 2, because they actually did that back in the day before cell phones and all that. The restaurant is just jam-packed in the movie, which it was in those days. So it's just a neat little trip down memory lane for me when I watch it. But it's a terrible movie. It's supposed to be Howard Hughes.
Yeah, it is.
The guy to go to.
Yeah, it's terrible. But the really cool thing about it is you're absolutely right. There are a couple of movies. White Line Fever comes to mind. The other one I keep thinking about that's actually a great movie is Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, where you actually get a look at a genuine truck stop and a genuine kind of hub yard where people are actually talking and shooting the breeze, and what you're seeing is the real thing. You know what I saw the other night, which is really kind of charming, much better than I remembered it, which is The Legend of Boggy Creek. Do you remember that?
No, I don't think I've seen that one.
It's not a truck driving movie, but it's set in Folk, Arkansas, and it's about basically their Bigfoot. And brother, go back and watch it. It's like really good.
I'll look it up.
Look it up. I think you'll really get a kick out of it. It's not so bad. It's good. It's just much better than you think it's going to be. And
White Line Fever, it was shot in Tucson as well. And there's 3 trucks used in that movie. They're Fords. And the one they crashed at the very end of it, they totally destroyed it when they crashed it. And I cut that truck up at Peterson's Truck Salvage in Tucson when I was like, 17.
That makes yeah, dude. It's really funny because I remember that movie, and I remember, like I said, there's a couple of them. There's like 20 or 30 like trucking movies. There's a lot of them, but there are 20 or 30 that actually use a lot of real locations and a lot of real people. Some of them very good, some of them not so good. But I feel like it's a genre that should come back. I gotta float you, Marshall. Please promise me you'll call back when Lindsay gets here.
I'll try.
All right, thank you, my friend. Good to talk to him as well. Let's do a really quick segue here, and we'll jump into our friends from Castrol and Kevin Lindsey, of course. What do you say we move beyond engine oil? What do you say we kind of talk about all the other things that kind of go into the lubrication of your engine? Kevin Lindsey is here for another edition of Maintenance Matters. You know him from TravelCenters of America, TA Petro, and the boys from Castrol, Eric and Byron, are here. Good morning to you, trifecta. How you guys doing? Good morning.
Good morning. Doing well, thanks.
It's the one time where I will allow everybody to talk all at the same time, and then we'll stop it from being a Howard Hawks movie. Kevin, let's kind of give an overview of what we're going to be talking about today. And good. And by the way, have you ever seen White Line Fever, Kevin?
I have. It's been a long time.
It's kind of terrible, isn't it? It's just kind of bad.
Well, there's a lot of trucking movies, in my opinion, that aren't very good.
No.
I don't know. I can't. I have to watch myself because Hollywood don't know how trucks actually operate.
No, they don't. No, they don't. I've always told people that people who love Convoy, Kevin, I'll tell you two things about trucking movies that you guys are going to love. The people who love Convoy, the first half of the movie is actually okay. The second half turns into absolute and total nonsense. And I'll show you how bad that movie is from a great director. Towards the end of the film, as Chris Christopherson is driving down the road, this documentary filmmaker rolls up and starts filming him from the flatbed. Do you remember that moment?
Yeah.
It's Sam Peckinpah, dude, who is literally younger than you and I and looks like he's about 2 decades older than us because the booze and cocaine he was doing on that film really shows at that moment. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, they're not many good ones. I mean, it's amazing because there should be a whole lot better ones, and I think people would actually be interested in a good truck driving movie. The one guy who actually understands. Go ahead, Kevin.
No, I was going to say Black Dog had a good storyline. It was just so technically inaccurate about trucks and everything.
Well, this is a crazy thing. I don't know if Eric or Byron knows this, and I don't know if you know this, but James Cameron was actually a genuine bona fide CDL Holden truck driving man. And it's funny because the truck driving in both Cameron's movies and the truck driving in anything John Carpenter does is accurate because the guy that John Carpenter used in his film Assault on Precinct 13 was a Teamster truck team captain. And it's crazy,
wow.
But it's the movies that aren't about trucking that often get the trucking more right than the trucking movies do. Okay, that's enough of that. I'm sorry. You guys can drop in your favorite trucking movies throughout this conversation. Kevin, give us the 30,000-foot view of actually keeping things lubricated.
Well, I think Eric and Byron both, reached out, was asking them about content for this show, and they were like, "Hey, let's talk about beyond engine lubricants, so, whatever we want to talk about as far as, lubricating other components, whether it's transmissions, differentials, drivelines and U-joints or power steering fluids, stuff like that." So,
yeah,
I said, well, that's a great idea.
I thought so too.
It's a good time of year for that.
Yeah, when I got your notes, I'm like, this is kind of perfect for the seasons that we're headed into, and it really kind of couples nicely with the maintenance we were talking about as we move into, I guess, possibly the great transitional season of all time, because I've always found going from winter to spring is just a mess. This is a really time to get your house in order in regards to truck lubrication. So what do you say we begin with? We can begin with Eric. Let's talk about the transmission and the different types of fluids used. Can we kind of talk about that, or do you want to hand that off?
No, I'm glad to cover that one. And it's become an even bigger topic nowadays with all of the automateds that are out in the marketplace. It's no longer just 50 weight, that you would stick in your transmission that has a lever. So the different types of transmissions on the market, predominantly there's of course the good old fashioned manual, and they're still out there, but they're slowly fading away. But we've got the automated, which is basically just a manual that has the computer do the gear changes for you. It's hydraulically activated or actuated and does the hard work. And then there's the the good old-fashioned automatic transmission you'll find in some of the lighter duty applications. Difference being is, those have a torque converter, and it's all hydraulically actuated. So the different types of fluids goes a lot farther than just basically 50 weight and engine oil. Now it seems like every manufacturer has their own flavor of fluid for their transmissions, even though they're very similar in what they do.
Let me give a follow up to that, and because here's the other thing too, that I've always said that trucking is a game of traditions and things kind of stay the same. They also change really rapidly around us. How much catch up do people who have been on the road for a long time have to do to kind of keep up with this stuff? And do you follow what I'm asking there, Eric? Because it seems like one of those things where there was a simpler time. We are now at the point where you've got to be very, very picky, because not just in regards to the quality that you want to run on, but the actual what you're running with. So that how hard is this adjustment to make for a lot of people? Because this is what we're talking about today. Seems like the kind of place where people forget to do their diligence. I change my oil, I do what I'm supposed to do, but this is the kind of place where people can really let this slide until it's too late. And if you don't know, you don't know. Am I kind of making sense here?
Yes, like you said, tradition is really it's a tough one here. Say you've got two rigs and they're fairly modern, right? They're late models, but they're different manufacturers. Chances are these things are going to take a different transmission fluid, and if you're doing your own services, you've got to be really careful and make sure you're looking up not only what the manual says that you should be putting in there, but when you're buying this stuff, you need to look all over the bottle or the pail, whatever you're getting, and make sure that it truly is matching up with what you're supposed to get. Doing your own service on these things is becoming a little bit more complicated. Just unless you've got everything exactly the same, you've got to have different fluid for, it seems like, every unit.
Yeah, and Byron, this seems to be like really kind of fall into your bailiwick as well here too, because you're working with so many individual customers and individual fleets and different kinds of consumers. You've really got to make sure that these people, even if they're doing things in-house, really have an in-depth understanding, which means how often are you sitting down and saying, okay, we've got some changes. Okay, we've got some new stuff here. Let's talk about the options, or you only have one option. How do you kind of approach that when you're kind of working with your clients and customers? Did I lose him? Byron, you there? Did I lose everybody?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Just making sure. We'll see if we can get Byron back on the phone. But Eric, that's the other thing too. I mean, how do we kind of articulate to the consumer? How do we talk to these guys and gals to make sure that they understand that this isn't just a game of same old on a different day? Not just reading the bottle, but it's like, at what point do we tell somebody you might not be able to do this on your own anymore? You might need a little help. You follow? Yeah,
I do, and it's not the easiest conversation, especially for someone who's always done it themselves, but it's an honest conversation. And when the sales guys come to me and they've got a new customer, and they ask for a lube platform, one of my first questions is, well, what do they have? Not only like what's the chassis make and model, what's the engine make and model, what are the transmissions, what are the years? Because believe it or not, it can vary across those factors as well.
Yeah.
So, and that's where sometimes you have to come up with a very long list, and they say, well, can't we consolidate this? Unfortunately, no. It's pretty tricky.
Kevin, let me ask you something really quickly too here. When you work with some of your ongoing clients, are there people who do you actually end up having to be a teacher in the sense of like, look, I know there's a lot of stuff you do, Kevin, but is there a way we can do this too? Do you have to kind of give demonstrations? That's the one thing that and all of the parts of your job I've been dying to ask you. At some point, people say, hey, look, we do a lot of this stuff ourselves. We kind of rely on you for the big stuff, but can you kind of take us through this? I mean, what are your boundaries? As I'm not here to train you. But then again, the customer gets so big. It's like, I'm happy to give you a little help, but go ahead.
Well, to be honest, that's where I have a little bit of an issue, because I can't help trying to train even customers, right? So,
right.
I want to share any information that I have, and sometimes it's not always a good thing because I may try to get a little too in depth with things that some people just really don't want to hear. Well, you handle that or whatever. So, but when yeah, so that is kind of tough. But I think it's a great thing to me for any business to help their customers, help themselves, and sure, we're kind of being in the service aspect of the business for my career. It sounds kind of funny, but the thing is, and it's kind of crazy, and I've always said this, but trucks are mechanical. Stuff is going to break. You're going to have things to fix, regardless of how good your maintenance program is. But developing a good program based off of how your fleet operates, and you really got to look at the data. How everything's working with what you have. But to the point with some of this, these newer automated transmissions, you really have to pay attention to the lubrication specs for them, because they do vary. So everything's not the same anymore. So but when they come to me and ask me that, I'm like, it depends on what you have. You really have to go by that manufacturer's recommendation.
I'll tell you this, by the way, you just brought up a really good point. Now everybody can understand why attorneys are actually ethically bound not to give free legal advice. It's the absolute truth, man, because the other problem is you start giving out free advice, and it's like, well, Kevin told me. Well, wait, I didn't tell you to do it like that.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
well,
it makes perfect sense.
I try to always say, hey, regardless of what I say, you got to follow the manufacturer's recommendations, period. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, let's just begin with the foundation that if you don't do what the instruction manual says, you're on your own. I can get you to the first checkpoint, but that's about it. Speaking of the first checkpoint, we got Byron back to the first checkpoint. Let me kind of reset the table for you, Byron, because I wanted to kind of ask you, this is interesting too, because often you having to have meetings with people about the changes in whatever lubrication they're using. How often do you have that meetings? How fast are things changing? Let's just use transmission because we're there, and then we'll shift over to differentials. But how do you sit down and kind of talk to your customers and say, okay, look, we got some new stuff here. Let's talk about how this works, which people don't realize a really good sales representative actually is like a good attorney in the sense that they actually know not just what they do, but they know the area in which they do it in. So what are those conversations like when you're talking about, the different kinds of lubrication, as we were talking about with Eric a little bit earlier? How do you kind of onboard this new stuff? Go ahead.
Well, I think you're right, because we try and look at as not just as kind of a sales type of role. We look at it as a little more of a consultant type thing, is how we do that. So I think ultimately, and I've said this numerous times, is when we're going to have that discussion with the customer, we're really going to look at, hey, what are the types of equipment you have right now, so we can kind of look at that and make some suggestions based off of that. But it really goes to, where are you looking to go in the future? What are you looking to do down the road? And I think at that point, we can really kind of, I don't know if I would say look into that crystal ball, but really kind of look at, hey, what's going on in the industry, and kind of really try and guide the customer with that. What I would say is, a lot of these fleets, a lot of the ones that we talk to, they're already working with the OEMs, quite heavily, just to kind of see what's coming down the line. So when I think about the fleets we talk to, a lot of those are pretty well, they're very knowledgeable, right? So they're already kind of working on a lot of those things already. But I think when you get down to the smaller fleets that maybe don't have that high level interaction with some of the OEMs and some of the truck manufacturers, it really is, what do you have in your fleet? What are you looking at doing? And here's the things that are coming down the road. Are you aware of those? And to really kind of look at how that best fits into their maintenance program and what they do overall as a company.
And by the way, and we're going to shift over to differentials here with Eric in a second, but this is a really great point. If you're doing stuff right, you're talking with Kevin, you're talking with Byron, and you're talking with the OEM. So it's kind of this situation where you're working with three different voices, and it's not that you're going to get contradictory information, but you really have to kind of figure out what your strategy is and what your overall mission is based on a lot of different consultations. Let's shift over here really quickly to talk about differentials here, Eric. Kind of explain them, explain what fluids are used and why.
Sure. The differentials are, and just like anything else nowadays, these things are built so well. The life of the service life or service intervals on these things are so long. It's almost, you almost have to put it on your calendar so you don't forget about it. But for the differential, there are different types of differentials out there. You have got your limited slip differentials, what I'll call basic differentials. You've got your differentials that are running with the fuel efficiency mindset. And believe it or not, they all have different types of fluids as well. They're all similar, but they're going to have slightly different additives or different viscosity levels. So you need to look and see, again, what it is that your differential needs. It's not just grabbing some 75/90 or 80/90 off the shelf and squirting it in there. You need to check and see, okay, what is it that's actually in this differential and what does it need? One of the things that sometimes comes up too is fluid level. How much is left in there? Just because these things go so long on service intervals.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just one of those things too, where it's all part of the same package we're kind of talking about here. By the way, guys, we're on another edition of Maintenance Matters, and if you can't tell, our friends from Castrol are here with Kevin Lindsey. Kevin, I mean, Eric just kind of alluded to it, the idea that it's one of those things you got to kind of put on the calendar as well. Is this one of those situations with differentials where people find themselves ambushed, where it's like the one thing they forgot about and you're like, yeah, this is what happened here? Is it something that comes up a lot? You're laughing. Here we go.
No, I don't think it comes up near as often as it used to. I think people are a lot more, in general, well informed about the maintenance that they need to do at specified times. Nowadays, better than they were 20 years ago. 20 years ago or so, I actually was a factory rep for a differential manufacturer, and I can tell you there was a lot of them ignored when it comes to maintenance. And I do think it's a lot better nowadays than some of the things I've seen in my past, for sure. So
I'll tell you this, by the way. Dean Croak has said this on numerous occasions, Kevin, and I think Eric and Byron will understand this. It's because of segments like this and because of podcasting and because of the idea of figuring out who your partners are and working with people like Castrol and TA that a lot of the problems that we talk about from days of old aren't there anymore. That we may have, despite all of the complaints we make about the industry, we may have some of the best informed people working in the industry than we've ever had. A lot of the institutional knowledge it doesn't work the way it used to work, but there's a lot of people who really understand you've got to trust your partners and work with them. Eric, we're going to run out of time here, so I want to make sure we get through some grease components here as well, too. Can you kind of give us the view?
Yeah, the grease components are, again, something that shouldn't be overlooked, especially since the majority of them are down underneath and they're exposed to, as we're coming into winter, salt spray, road salt, snow, all of the nasty, everything that can get in there and start to corrode or worse yet, wipe some of that grease out. Things like your U joints, your slip joints, wheel bearings, your suspension, your spring hangers, everywhere that needs to be greased underneath. But one of the most easy ones to forget, and usually the one I find the most confusing for the average, guy out there, is fifth wheel. How much do I put on there? Where should I put it? Sometimes I was talking with Byron about this recently. You look at it and someone puts so much on there, it looks like cake with frosting across the top. And sometimes you just see a little bit of an S squirted on it. And what's the right amount?
Well, I love that.
That's the question.
I love that, by the way, Byron. That must be like part of a conversation too. It's like, there's just you can't be like an ant storing up food for the winter here. It doesn't work like that. You just can't do it that way. It's like, okay, so I slapped a whole bunch of stuff on. I'm going to kind of move on. There really is almost an art to this, right? I mean, it's almost a matter of, yeah, you got to take care of it, but you can't be one and done on this. If I'm making sense there, am I?
Oh yeah, completely. And I would tell you, going back to kind of a previous life before Castrol, working in truck maintenance and service, and actually, we did a lot of heavy truck alignment as well. And, it would not be uncommon to have somebody come in and say, well, hey, the front end of my truck's kind of all over the road at and I'm kind of constantly at the steering wheel to keep it back and forth. And believe it or not, you could look at somebody and see that they have a very dry fifth wheel. And what will happen with that is, as that truck kind of hits, these wonderful highways we have across the country, all those, these hard bumps in the road, that back end is hitting it. And what's doing is that fifth wheel is there, and that trailer is pushing the back end of that truck, which means the driver's constantly at the steering wheel the whole time. And, it's just one of those things that kind of really gets to be overlooked. And I kid you not, I have gone in fleets before, and they will have an area, kind of by the back door where the drivers may come in and get washer fluid or something else that they need. And there'll be an open 5-gallon bucket of grease there. And without a doubt, you may see a big masonry trowel in there, or I've even seen a very small boat oar inside of a bucket just for somebody to scoop it up and throw it on the fifth wheel. And what you have is there's way too much grease, right? And it's just, as soon as somebody goes to hook up that trailer, all those, couple pounds of grease they put on it are now pushed off. And where do they go? They drop down on top of the drive line.
Go ahead, Kevin.
More is better, isn't it? Isn't it, Byron?
Well, no, not in this sense. Not in this sense of it. It isn't. I would tell you, there's the things you really see with fifth wheels. Either it's hardly ever greased, it's way too over greased, and it's very rare to see somebody has just the right amount. It's a little bit of that tale of Goldilocks, I think, a little bit when you kind of come to this with it. So,
it is.
It just takes a little bit of education to really make sure somebody's kind of doing the right thing there with it. But, heading into this time of year with all the salt and grime and let's just, cinder they put on the road, that gets into fifth wheel, and it needs to be kind of cleaned off from time to time and fresh grease kind of put on with really the right amount on it.
I don't know if you guys know, today's National Dessert Day, and it makes me think about baking. People always say that cooking is an art form and baking is a science, and that's kind of often the way when you're dealing with lubricants to kind of think about it as well too. Some of this stuff requires a little bit of artistry. Some of it requires absolutely right down to the last number science. We're out of time, guys. There was so much more to talk about. Byron, can you do us a favor? Tell people where they can find out more about Castrol, and then I'll kind of turn this over to Kevin so we can kind of talk about TravelCenters of America.
Yeah, sure. Great. You can just go right online and look at castrolusa.com, and you'll be able to kind of look in there and see all across our business across the U.S., but you can select heavy-duty lubricants and go through our whole portfolio of products and learn a little more information. And there's even some ways to contact us from there as well.
Byron Kelchner is, of course, the Senior National Account Manager for Fleets. Eric Arnold is Field Engineer. They both come here once a month, joining Kevin Lindsey on Maintenance Matters, talking about all those oil issues. And Kevin, of course, is the Manager of Technical Service at TravelCenters of America. This has been Maintenance Matters. Thanks for putting up with my own sort of messy middle. Thank you, guys. We'll talk to you in a month, and we'll talk to Kevin next week. Thank you both.
All right. Thanks, everybody.